What happened to these former NBA teams? So did you know back in 1995, Canada actually had two NBA teams, the Toronto Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies. Now the Grizzlies would only spend a couple seasons in Vancouver until they would leave in 2001 because of low performance. But luckily for them, they would acquire the number 3 overall pick, who was Pau Gasol from the Atlanta Hawks, and he would become one of their best franchise players. But the most important part about getting Pau Gasol was that they would use him in a trade where they would acquire his brother, Marc Gasol, from the Lakers. And he is arguably the best player in Grizzlies franchise history. Now, the Charlotte Hornets actually have a long history of relocating, so I'll try to keep it brief. In 2002, the Charlotte Hornets would leave Charlotte and move to New Orleans because of low fan attendance. But then in 2005, they would have to relocate again to Oklahoma City because of Hurricane Katrina. Now, in 2010, the league would acquire the ownership rights to the team because they didn't have an owner. And this would be around the same time period where the famous Chris Paul to the Lakers trade would happen, and the league would decide to veto it. Now, eventually, they would find a new owner in 2012, and coincidentally, they would get the number 1 overall pick in that same draft and draft Anthony Davis. And then eventually, they become the New Orleans Pelicans, and they're still the Pelicans till this day. Now, you might be confused because the Charlotte Hornets still exist right now. Well, in 2005, Charlotte would get another NBA team, and they were called the Charlotte Bobcats. And they weren't really that great, so much in fact that they would finish with one of the worst records in NBA history in 2012, going 7-59. But eventually, in 2014, they would regain their title and their franchise history and becoming the Charlotte Hornets that we know today. And finally, the beloved Seattle Supersonics, who won a championship in the 1970s, would leave Seattle in 2008 to move to Oklahoma City. And they would rebrand to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they actually would have a ton of success, even making the finals twice and winning a championship this past season, which must have been heartbreaking for Seattle fans everywhere. But there's still hope that they'll get an expansion team in the future seasons. Comment a city that deserves an NBA team.